The envelope I placed in her lawyer's hand didn't contain evidence of an affair, hidden assets, or a secret criminal past. It contained the heartbreaking, meticulously documented proof that the woman who was trying to erase me from our daughter's life had already been erased herself, long before she ever decided to leave. The sting of the process server's visit was a public acid burn on a private humiliation. I saw him the moment the receptionist, her voice a nervous warble over the intercom, said, "Mr. Thorne, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says it's urgent." I knew. Of course I knew. The cold silence that had settled over our home for the past 6 months had been building to this crescendo of legal paper. Sarah had moved out 3 weeks ago, taking our 7-year-old daughter Lily with her. The texts were terse, logistical. "Need to change the weekend. My lawyer will be in touch." My office door swung open before I could answer. He was exactly as I'd imagined. Mid-40s, a suit that cost more than my car, a tan that spoke of golf courses rather than playgrounds, and a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. He carried a slim, brown leather portfolio. "Mark Thorne?" he asked, though it wasn't a question. He'd clearly seen my photo. "That's me," I said, leaning back in my chair, forcing a calm I didn't feel. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. The eyes of my team in the open-plan office outside were boring into my back. "I'm Robert Vance, representing Sarah Thorne." He didn't extend a hand. Instead, he opened the portfolio and slid a thick sheaf of papers across my desk. "You've been served. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I advise you to retain counsel immediately." The words were formal, brutal. Dissolution. It sounded so chemical, so sterile. It didn't capture the 7 years of marriage, the whispered dreams in the dark, the terrifying, beautiful journey of bringing Lily into the world. The way Sarah's laugh used to feel like the only music I ever needed to hear. My eyes scanned the first page. She was asking for sole legal and physical custody, granting me reasonable visitation to be determined at the court's discretion, which, as Vance would well know, often meant every other weekend and a Wednesday dinner. She was petitioning to move Lily 3 states away to her hometown, citing a stronger support system. She was trying to cut me out of my daughter's life, to turn me into a footnote, a photo in an album, a name on a birthday card. I looked up at Vance. His smug expression was already calculating my reaction, the anger, the pleading, the desperation. He'd seen it 1,000 times. He was a predator, and he thought he just cornered his prey. But the anger that rose in me wasn't hot and blinding. It was cold, clear, and absolute. It was the ice that forms after a long, deep freeze. Sarah hadn't just broken our marriage. She was now weaponizing our child. She had crossed a line that erased every last remnant of my guilt and hesitation. "A stronger support system?" I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Is that what she's calling it?" Vance's smile didn't falter. "My client feels it's in the child's best interest to be surrounded by extended family during this difficult transition." "Your client," I said, letting the words hang in the air, "hasn't recognized her own extended family in over 2 years. Her mother calls my phone weekly, crying because Sarah won't answer her calls." Vance's smile tightened slightly. "Irrelevant hearsay. The court will be far more interested in stability and the primary caregiver's well-being, and my client has been Lily's primary caregiver since birth." There it was. The argument I knew was coming. The one that, on paper, was unassailable. Sarah was the nurturing, present mother. I was the father who worked hard to provide, a fact that was now about to be twisted into absence and neglect. I slowly, deliberately, opened the top drawer of my desk. I didn't pull out a checkbook or my phone to call a lawyer. I pulled out a simple, legal-sized manila envelope. It was worn at the edges, thick with its contents. I placed it on top of the divorce papers. "This is for you, Mr. Vance," I said. "I'd strongly advise you to review it with your client before this goes any further. It pertains directly to your client's fitness as a sole custodian and her well-being." Vance looked at the envelope as if it were a snake. His confidence flickered for a microsecond. This wasn't in the script. Fathers he served cried, yelled, or shut down. They didn't hand over counter-evidence with the calm certainty of a winning poker player showing his hand. "What is this?" he asked, his voice losing its polished gleam. "The truth," I said simply. "It's a timeline, with evidence. It starts about 2 months after Lily's 5th birthday. That's when the light in Sarah's eyes started to fade. It's all in there. Doctor's reports, psych evaluations she refused to follow up on, prescriptions for antidepressants that were never refilled, emails she sent to me that are, well, you'll see. Video logs I started keeping for Lily's sake so she might one day understand." I leaned forward, my gaze locking with his. "It details the beginning of her severe, untreated postpartum depression that never went away. It morphed into a debilitating anxiety and a profound emotional detachment. It shows that for the past 2 years, I have been Lily's primary caregiver. I'm the one who made every breakfast, packed every lunch, helped with every homework assignment, attended every parent-teacher conference, nursed every fever, soothed every nightmare. Sarah was often in bed by 6 p.m. or staring blankly at a wall, lost to a world of sadness I couldn't reach." Vance was no longer smiling. He was pale. He knew. A mother's mental health was a critical factor in custody battles. And a lawyer who pursued an aggressive custody strategy based on false pretenses, ignoring a known and documented history of illness, could be sanctioned for bad faith. "She's better now," Vance said. But it was a weak, automatic protest. "Is she?" I asked, my voice softening with a genuine pain that never seemed to leave me. "Or is running away, trying to create a new narrative with me as the villain, just another symptom? Does she really have a support system there? Or is she just fleeing the scene of her own pain and willing to tear our daughter's world in half to do it?" The evidence in that envelope suggests the latter. It also includes a report from a private investigator I hired 2 weeks ago. Her proposed new home is a 1-bedroom apartment next to a bar her old party friends frequent. Not exactly the stable family environment described in your petition. I tapped the envelope. "Take it. Show it to her. And then you can explain to her how pursuing this current path will not only result in her losing the custody battle so decisively it will shock her, but it will also force the court to mandate psychological evaluation and treatment. It will make every private struggle she's ever had a matter of public record. I didn't want this. I wanted to protect her. I loved her. But she is using my daughter as a pawn. And for that, there is no protection. There is only the truth." Robert Vance, high-powered divorce attorney, looked utterly defeated. He slowly picked up the envelope, its weight seeming to surprise him. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. The certainty in my voice was all the authentication he required. He turned without another word and left my office, a defeated slump already in his shoulders. I sank back into my chair, the adrenaline draining away, leaving me hollow and trembling. The fight was won, but it felt like a catastrophic loss. I had just weaponized the most painful period of our lives together. I had exposed the woman I once vowed to protect above all others. But Lily, it was always for Lily. The courtroom air was cold, smelling of lemon polish and old wood. It felt like a library where lives were being systematically dismantled instead of stories being preserved. Sarah sat at the plaintiff's table, her back rod straight, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. She looked like a stranger. an elegant, sharp-edged sculpture of the soft, warm woman I'd fallen in love with. She didn't look at me. Her lawyer, Robert Vance, looked tense. He kept shuffling papers, avoiding eye contact with everyone. My lawyer, a sharp, compassionate woman named Angela Rivera, gave my arm a reassuring squeeze. "It's almost over, Mark. Just hold steady." The judge, a woman with a kind face and weary eyes, entered. We all rose and then sat again, the ritual complete. "We are here on the matter of Thorne versus Thorne," the judge began, her voice echoing slightly in the near-empty room. "Petition for dissolution in matters of child custody. Mr. Vance, is your client prepared to proceed?" Vance stood up, clearing his throat. "Your Honor, if it pleases the court, we would like to request a brief recess to reconsider our position on the custody arrangement." Sarah's head whipped around to stare at him, her eyes wide with shock and fury. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Vance, this is highly irregular. We are here for a hearing. Has something changed?" Vance looked like he'd swallowed something sour. He glanced at the manila envelope on the table in front of him. "Yes, Your Honor. New evidence has come to light that my client and I need to review in order to ensure we are acting in the best interest of the child." The judge's eyes flicked to me, then to Angela. "Ms. Rivera, any objection?" "No objection, Your Honor," Angela said smoothly. "Very well. 15-minute recess." The judge banged her gavel and stood. The moment the judge disappeared into her chambers, Sarah rounded on Vance. Her whisper a venomous hiss I could hear from across the room. "What are you doing? What is this? We had an agreement." Vance leaned close to her, speaking in low, urgent tones. He gestured to the envelope. Sarah's face, initially flushed with anger, slowly drained of color. She listened, her eyes darting from the envelope to Vance's face. And then, finally, to me. Her gaze was no longer angry. It was shattered. It was the look of someone who had built a house of cards to hide in, only to watch the walls be blown down by a wind they hadn't known was coming. She saw not malice in my eyes, but a profound, weary sadness. I wasn't triumphant. I was heartbroken. She slowly reached for the envelope, her hand trembling. She pulled out the first sheet, a chart I'd made, a simple timeline of our descent. I saw her eyes scan it, her lips part in a silent gasp. She saw the dates, the doctor's appointments she'd missed, the prescriptions I'd filled for her, the quotes from her own emails. "I feel nothing, Mark. I look at Lily and I feel like I'm looking through a window at someone else's life." She saw a printed still from one of my video logs. Her, sitting on the living room floor, staring blankly at the wall, while Lily, just 5 years old, tried to put a blanket over her shoulders, her small face pinched with worry. Sarah made a small, choked sound and dropped the paper as if it had burned her. She covered her mouth with her hand, her shoulders beginning to shake. The tough, cold facade she'd carried into the courtroom crumbled into dust, revealing the raw, aching woman beneath. Vance put a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off violently. She spent the rest of the recess with her face in her hands, the envelope of her pain sitting between us like a funeral shroud. When the judge returned, Vance stood again. "Your Honor, after further consultation with my client, we would like to withdraw our petition for sole custody and the request for relocation. We would be amenable to a shared parenting plan with joint legal and physical custody, with the primary residence remaining here for the stability of the child's school and social life." The words were a balm and a wound. It was what I wanted, what Lily needed. But hearing it come out so clinically, after the nuclear option I'd been forced to deploy, felt empty. The judge looked at Sarah. "Mrs. Thorne, is this your wish? You understand the terms your attorney is agreeing to on your behalf?" Sarah slowly raised her head, Her eyes were red-rimmed and swimming with tears. She looked at the judge, then at me. For the first time in years, she truly saw me. And in her gaze, I saw not hatred, but a dawning, horrifying awareness of what she had done and what she had become. "Yes, Your Honor," she whispered, her voice breaking. It's what's best for Lily." The judge finalized the arrangements quickly. The legal language, a stark contrast to the emotional tsunami that had just receded. We were to share custody 50-50, a week on, a week off. No one was moving. It was over. As we stood to leave, the formalities complete, Sarah hesitated. Vance gathered his things and walked out, giving us a wide berth. Angela gave me a nod and moved toward the door, granting us a moment of privacy. The courtroom was silent, except for the hum of the lights. Sarah stood across from me, the wide wooden table, a canyon between us. "You documented all of it?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "I had to, Sarah," I said, my own throat tight. I didn't know what else to do. You were disappearing. I was so scared. I thought if I could just track it, understand it, I could find a way to fix it, to bring you back to us. A single tear traced a path through her makeup. "You must hate me." I shook my head, a weary exhaustion seeping into my bones. "I don't hate you. I loved you. I grieved for you while you were still standing in the same room. This," I gestured to the now empty room. "This was just me fighting for the pieces of my family that were left. I was fighting for Lily, and I was fighting for you, even when you couldn't fight for yourself. I just never thought I'd have to use it as a weapon." She wrapped her arms around herself, looking small and lost. "I'm so sorry, Mark." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of years of pain, neglect, and misdirected anger. They were the first real, true words she'd spoken to me in a long, long time. "I know," I said. "So am I." I picked up my briefcase. I had to go. I had to pick up Lily from school. I had to tell her that Mommy and Daddy wouldn't be fighting anymore, and that she would get to see us both, lots and lots. As I walked out of the courtroom, the envelope felt like it was still in my hand, its ghost a permanent weight. I hadn't destroyed her case with evidence of her malice, but with evidence of her pain. I hadn't won a victory. I'd simply ended a war by revealing the tragic, shared battlefield we'd been standing on all along. The victory was Lily's smile, her stability, her world kept whole, and that was the only victory that had ever mattered.